Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Wednesday Lunchtime live stream on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. I am DDO's Community Manager, Cordovan, and welcome. We've got a special, great show for you today. We are going to be on Lamannia, and I've got a guest. So welcoming to the weekly Wednesday Lunchtime live stream is Steelstar. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good, good. Hopefully everyone can hear us okay. I'm taking a look at chat just to make sure. It actually looks like my mic might be a little low. The one thing I didn't check. Yep, here we go. Alright, there we are. That is much better there. Thanks, everyone. Alright, so happy Wednesday to you too. What have we got going on? We are on Lamannia with some pretty significant changes, and that's why I've got Steelstar with us here today. So, Steelstar, bow combat has been something that has been sometimes awesome, sometimes behind the curve over the years, and we're really doing something pretty big about it here in the near future. So why don't we kind of kick off a little bit, what are we trying to do with our bow changes here in update 49?
All right, so what we're trying to do with bows in update 49 is a combination of a few things. One of which is fix some problems on the tech end that prevent us from being able to balance bows well in the first place. The pass is also meant to help bring bow builds as a whole up quite a bit in terms of their stable damage that they do just when generally playing through the game.
And we're previewing it this week. We have a developer event tonight, and you can hang out. I don't know if you're going to be there specifically, Steelstar. I know Coco's going to be there, and some other folks are going to be there as well. So a good opportunity to take a look at these bow changes in a real way and get us feedback here. What I've done in Lamannia is create an admin character that's a pure ranger, level 20. I just went up to level 30, gave myself some XP and put about 24 points into Sharati as well. Equipped myself with the most recent raid bow. I can actually show you what that is here in just a second. And the basic idea is we can talk about some of the things. We'll go through the forum thread since it does get pretty crunchy. And then for video here, you can kind of see some of what we're talking about in action. And then if we need to, we can go even further on that and start, showing a few things off specifically, calling up a few trees and things specifically if we want to. Does that sound pretty good to everyone in chat? So, there we go. I'm quick looking at chat to make sure that I'm caught up. Someone say hello over on YouTube. I saw the video, I know we're live, but I'm not seeing chat yet. So, let me know if you happen to be seeing us over in YouTube, and welcome everyone in Twitch. Probably the big question. Well, actually, before we get to that big question, let me call up the actual page. And I don't know, you may want to have the Lamannia forums up yourself there, Steelstar, on your computer. We're going to be heading to a thread called Bow Combat Style Revamp. And I'm going to put it up on the screen here periodically. I'm going to leave it up by default, and then I'll turn it off when we want to actually show a few things, kind of depending on the needs of the content here. So, but that's the intention, is to kind of go through this thread a little bit, talk a little bit about what it all means, and maybe provide a little more context and understanding where we can. So, it's kind of even hard to know where to start, right?
It is. There's a lot to this pass. We could probably talk through this first post and the overall goals.
Yeah.
This breaks it down in a lot more detail than 2 sentences would. But it gives you a pretty good idea of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. So this is a top-down. This is not just about enhancement trees. We're doing new animations and everything for this.
Right. So the first thing that we did in this rework is take a look at the animations. One of the things that has affected bow users on live is something called the animation cap. DDO's engine has really more of a safety feature than anything else that prevents animation speed from being sped up beyond a certain multiplier. Most animations in the game don't get anywhere near that because they are the animations are built at a speed that's fairly close to what we want that animation to play at in game. Bows, however, the existing live bow animations are very, 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 very slow. If you used that animation in game with no speed multipliers, nothing on the back end changing the animation speed, firing one arrow would take 2.066 seconds, which is a really long time in DDO attack chains. It's way longer than anything else takes to do a single attack. Developers a long time ago knew this was a problem, and so they used base attack bonus on the back end to multiply the speed of bow attacks, even at level 1, to be much, much faster, so you're never actually firing at one shot every 2.066 seconds. Unfortunately, that big upfront speed boost that we gave to make bows even remotely viable takes you most of the way to that animation cap. And as you then get things like haste and other bonuses to ranged alacrity, you run into that cap pretty quick. And beyond that, no speed bonuses apply at all. It'll say you have them, but it's not actually doing anything. So that complicated description aside, it was a problem. We needed to fix it. So we made brand new bow animations that don't have this problem. They play at about the speed we want you to fire by default.
Okay. So that's the animation front. And then there's also really a lot else, though, to it. Where
Yes.
I think it's safe to say that we are shifting away from burst damage for most range builds as the sort of core foundation of what they do, and moving that damage, spreading it out more across the combat spectrum.
Yes. So one of the things that has made balancing bow as a combat style difficult is the combat style's reliance on many shot. Many shot is this big, big, big burst of damage that, you know, based on cooldown, you have up about a sixth of the time. In reality, you have it up in combat more than that because you tend to float the cooldowns while you're between encounters. But it represents such a big boost to bow damage that to keep things close to balanced, your bow damage the rest of the time has to be pretty garbage. And that's unfortunate because we don't want you to just blow things away for a little bit of time and then be terrible. We want, you know, generally speaking, we want your bow attacks to feel like they're worth firing, even when this one skill is not up. So, among a lot of other things we did in this pass is we took many shot, we took its current functionality out of the equation and changed the many shot feat to be an attack where you shoot 3 times in a row and you get extra crit bonuses on those shots. So you shoot very quickly and do a whole bunch of damage, which is itself a form of burst damage. It's just immediate as opposed to over a chunk of time. And then we took a lot of statistical bonuses, quite a bit of range power and double shot, and added those to feats where it scales up as you level. So you're getting a lot more baseline damage, and less of your damage is reliant on that little bit of time in burst.
Okay. Diversify the number of viable builds that can use longbows and short bows. What we have here is a pure ranger, but one of the intentions is to open that up to other classes.
For sure. You know, we want rangers to be kind of the premier bow users. That's, you know, a big part of their archetype in pen and paper. But there are a lot of other places that bow builds could be good, but had a few things standing in their way that we tried to adjust in this. You know, fighter can ostensibly be a good bow user, and it probably is the next best one right now beyond ranger and monk. But Paladins and other divines have the Silver Flame deity, which supports longbows, but it's hard right now on live to get the kinds of things you would need to be able to execute on some of those properly. Rogue with a bow could be viable, but there's a few other things standing in its way. So some of the smaller things we did here are, lower some prerequisites, make a few feats less kind of mandatory to be good with bows than they were before, things like that.
All right. I'm showing off a little bit of showing off a little bit of combat here on Lamannia. Let me bring back up the page so that people can read a little bit more about what we're talking about. So this clearly means a lot of enhancement tree work as well. And I'm kind of going through the main thread here and trying to hit the main bullet points. And we will have plenty of time for your questions in that as well, and getting into things. But how do we approach this how did we approach this when it came to all of the various enhancement trees we have out there?
So we honestly didn't end up doing much to the trees themselves. A lot of these trees aren't perfect, but they do have defined roles, and we didn't really want to make any of them better or worse than they are relative to each other. So a lot of the focus of this pass was, if we can make bow as a combat style better as a whole, that brings all of those trees up together. Because those trees are built on top of bow as a combat style, so if bow as a combat style goes up, those trees go up.
Okay. Before we, I guess, delve into some other kind of things in this thread, let's talk a little bit about something that's on the horizon, which is that we have a new enhancement tree that's been teased, called the Horizon Walker. And although it's not here yet, it is relevant to our discussions about bow combat.
So Horizon Walker is still at least one update out.
Yeah.
We knew we were working on both that and this bow combat style pass at about the same time, but we decided to get this combat style pass done first, make sure that bows overall were in a pretty good state on live, and then readjust our plans for that tree as needed. Ideally, we want that tree to have useful tools for bow users, help with a certain style of bow usage, but not necessarily make it an absolutely mandatory tree where if you're going to be a bow user, you have to use this tree.
Yeah. But it is something where if you're sitting there going, ooh, this bow stuff is sweet, and right now, maybe you're looking at Arcane Archer or whatever it might end up being, right? This is something that later this year you're going to have an opportunity to delve into.
Yes, that's the plan. It should be coming later this year. And one problem that we sort of do have is the number of trees we have that are purely bow focused and DPS focused are kind of low. Arcane Archer is not exactly that tree. It's got a lot of crowd control and a lot of elemental damage. Deepwood Stalker kind of shares territory with being a melee and a ranged tree. Kensei's kind of a bow tree, but only if you really want it to be, and even then, the support's not really complete. So it's going to be nice to have a universal tree that any class can access that gives some basic tools that are good for bow users.
All right. Before I sort of delve further into the thread on that, let me move back into our chat rooms and see what we have. Why don't I start first with Facebook here? Someone wants us to delve a little bit more. This makes sense. How are we implementing or differentiating long bows from short bows under this new bow system?
I had a plan for a small boost to short bow that probably wouldn't make up the entire difference between long bows and short bows statistically, but would give them a little bit of a niche. I had to pull that right before Lamannia because the concept didn't work. I'm hoping I get time to add something in that same kind of vein before we go live, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do exactly what I want to do with that.
Someone else on Facebook wants us to talk about what is available on Lamannia related to crafting scepters and quarterstaves. Why don't we put a pin in that and deal with that maybe towards the end of the show if we have time? Does that sound okay?
Possibly. I don't know much about that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't either, unfortunately.
Territory,
so,
and I've had a pretty steady focus on bows and the Epic Destiny Pass coming later this year.
Okay, so maybe we'll have to table that discussion outside of maybe tonight on the Lamannia chat. Show up there. We can probably
that would be a
get
good time
with there. So, all right. So that I think I'm caught up on there. Let me see what I've got over on YouTube. How will this affect crossbows?
Most of the changes here don't affect crossbows at all. There are a few changes that do touch crossbows, largely in places where we either fixed bugs or made adjustments to make things more consistent game-wide. There's a chance that brings some crossbow builds down in power a little bit. If we need to boost crossbows after that, we'll do it in a way that doesn't rely on either bugs or inconsistent abilities.
All right, Lupito, over on YouTube, basically is hearing blinding speed is getting nerfed. What's up with blinding speed?
Right, so blinding speed is an epic feat that was essentially meant to be a mirror of the haste spell. It's a feat that you could gain that essentially gives you the effects of the haste spell permanently. About the same time we made that feat, way back in ye old 2013, we made that feat, and then right around the same time, we changed the haste spell to stop giving 22% ranged attack speed and only give 15%. And the blinding speed feat was never updated, along with reconstruct and armor of speed. So since then, they have been giving more range speed than the haste feat, and the intent of that feat is that it should match the haste spell. So we're bringing in that outlier and making it match the haste spell.
Okay, all right. I'm looking at Lamannia, and is the description here basically currently correct? It is 15%.
Yes.
To melee range, 32%
yep,
to movement.
That looks correct.
And then +1 to enhancement, +1% dodge, +1 reflexes per the haste spell on that. So, okay. I think, let me see, I think that covers YouTube for now, so let me head on over to Twitch. How is bow combat going to impact the ASMR Scourge? Do you have any thoughts about how you might answer that question? I'm not sure. Is there a specific part of ASMR Scourge, or just kind of in general, how will it impact a Scourge? I'm not sure on that one. Did I lose you?
I think you did. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Good, okay. Sorry about that. I couldn't hear you for a good minute there.
Okay, sorry about that. Someone is asking, how is bow combat going to impact the ASMR Scourge? Do you have any kind of thoughts about how it might be related to that?
Not specifically. I'd have to go back and take a look.
Okay. Will Horizon Walker be available for the Ranger class? The answer is yes plus. That is our next universal enhancement tree. So anyone's going to be able to take it. Will corrosive arrows compile the magic spell power? And that's from @jcom_2 on Twitch. So I've got corrosive arrows in front of me. Sorry, you still not hearing me?
Oh no, I hear you.
Okay, good. I've got corrosive arrows on my hotbar here, so let's call that one up. It says deals 1d8 acid damage on a hit, scaling with spell power. And the question then is, will corrosive arrows compile spell power? Do you know what they mean by that?
Not specifically. I'd need a few more details, but we haven't changed that ability in this pass specifically, so it should work exactly the same as it does on live.
Okay. I have a couple people saying I need to turn down your audio slightly, so I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so someone's saying basically, I'm sad we're getting rid of mini-shot. We're not really getting rid of mini-shot. We're getting rid of, we're changing its base functionality to, let's sort of talk about mini-shot, since it's sort of an important topic for many of the players of our game. So just to reiterate, what are we doing with mini-shot, and why are we doing it?
Okay, so we are essentially retiring its existing functionality and turning the feat itself into an attack that has a lot of punch behind it. It's an attack that fires 3 arrows in rapid succession. Those arrows each have an extra crit range and multiplier. So you press the button, fires 3 arrows real fast, those arrows hit hard. And part of the reason we're doing this is so that we can bring up bow damage across the board significantly. That's hard to do without changing the existing functionality of many shot, because many shot represents such a big burst in power that to make your overall damage balanced, your damage would has to be very low the rest of the time. By taking that out of the equation, we can bring up your stable damage by a lot and give you back a different form of burst damage, which is this attack that has a relatively low cooldown but hits pretty hard.
Yeah. Also, the passive is you gain double shot equal to your base attack bonus with longbows and shortbows as well. So that's going to also give you. I'm just looking at the tab, what I got there. So, that's going to make a difference as well. So. Yep.
There's a counterpart to that on the rapid shot feat also that gives you, I believe, double shot related to your base attack bonus.
Yeah. All right. Let me move on over. Let's see. For those fighter bow builds that have many shot, will they get the new attacks as well? Or how are we going to deal with things like feat swaps on that? Have we given any thought to that?
The new many shot feat is literally the same feat. We just changed its functionality. So if you have the old many shot when this update comes through, or if you transfer to Lamannia right now, you'll have the new many shot.
Yeah. What about ranged smite evil? This one from Groovy.
It should function as before. I think that ranged paladin should be a lot more functional with these changes than it was previously. So I'd be really interested to see if people can make some really good use of ranged smite evil.
Witcher 8 asks a question about 10,000 stars, but I'd like to actually expand that out a little bit to talk about how these bow changes do or do not impact the other ranged folks, the thrown weapon people, the shuriken throwers, that kind of thing.
Sure. Like I said before, a lot of these changes don't touch crossbow builds or throwers directly, because a lot of the things we changed were, specific bow animations or things like many shot, which only worked on bows. There are a few things like the blinding speed change that do affect those, and again, if we need to make further adjustments in light of that, we can do that in the future. There are some existing other balance problems in those styles. Throwers have a lot of the same issues right now that the bow animations have. In a perfect world, I would have loved to do a thrower pass at the same time as this bow pass, where we do new thrower animations that don't run into speed cap problems. But that was too large a task to do at the same time as we adjust all the bow issues. Sometime in the future, I'd like to do a pass to thrower similar to what we're doing with bows right now. It's just not in the immediate future.
Okay. Will ranged paladin cleaves hit multiple targets or stay single target?
They are intended as single target attacks, and they will remain as single target attack.
Yeah.
If you want it to hit multiple targets, that's what improved precise shot's for.
Okay. From YouTube, will No Holds Barred, Endless Fuselage, and 10,000 Stars see similar changes as Many Shot?
Not in this update, although we may make some adjustments to 10k stars depending on how DPS tests of Monk Archer builds turn out, because it sounds like there may be some synergies opened up by this pass that elevate Monk Archers way above some other archers. In the future, if we do a similar pass for throwers, we may adjust the functionality of 10k stars. We may adjust the functionality of simple thrown weapon expertise, things like that. Stay tuned in the future, but this bow pass is not specifically meant to change those, no.
Okay. Unrelated topic I can answer quickly. Greta from YouTube, when will more information about Hardcore 4 be released? We are going live with our 4th season of Hardcore on March 31st. That's a week from today. And in the coming days, I intend to put up, if I can, the rewards list. Typically, we wait until day of on this thing, but I want to see if I can tease it out a little bit this time. So I'm going to see if I can get that reward list up on ddo.com/hardcore in the coming days. But otherwise, it'll be March 31st, and we're running through June 29th, that the 4th season of Hardcore kicks off. So 1 week from today. By the time you see this next week, we will be probably on the Hardcore server. I guess let me ask a couple unrelated questions then, since we do have that coming in. Wish
Sure.
list. Any plans for monks to be able to be centered with crossbows?
No. Probably not ever, but no plans for it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Oh, thank you for Culum. I can't quite read the username on Twitch. Brings up a question about dex to damage, which is something we haven't verbally mentioned here on this thing. We're making a pretty significant change to the way bow combat works related to dexterity to hit and damage.
Right. So currently on live and way back all the way through DDo's history, longbows and shortbows have had dexterity to hit on most longbows and shortbows, but no ability mod to damage. And one of the ways that we wanted to make bow combat a little more accessible is give all longbows and shortbows dexterity to damage by default. So you should see that on Lamannia already. There's a couple of bows that slipped through, but I'm fixing those. Where longbows and shortbows now have dexterity to damage as a default.
So it's not about having a feat to use dexterity to damage as a stat option.
Right.
If you've got a bow equipped, you're using dexterity to damage by default?
Yep.
Okay. And then if you have something like, say, then a bow strength, you would use your strength modifier if it's higher.
Right. That works like any other weapon that has an ability score to damage naturally. Like if you're using a sword that has strength to damage and you pick up the Harper intelligence to damage, you would use the highest of your intelligence and strength. In this case, if you picked up a bow strength, you would use the highest of your strength and dexterity for your damage mod.
Okay. Someone on YouTube is saying, rather than differentiating short bows and long bows, why don't we just combine the two and then come up with some other kind of ranged weapon?
That's something we discussed. Ultimately, that's kind of a complex thing to pull off. It's still a possibility, but especially given the time frame that we have on this, I'm not sure we're going to do that in this pack.
Yeah,
I'd sort of rather find a good niche for short bows to do something interesting and a little bit different. If I can do that in enough time to fit it into this update, I will try to.
Will the dex to damage change carry over to Zen Archery? My understanding of that is it'll be, if you have a higher wisdom, that would work for that, right? Otherwise it's...
Right, I believe that's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just double check Zen Archery real quick.
Yeah.
Zen Archery should be unchanged. It grants you your wisdom instead of dexterity if wisdom is to hit, if your wisdom is higher,
Okay.
and that's not changed. Bows still have dexterity to hit as before.
And so for the damage portion, yeah, it would still just be dexterity to damage.
It'd still just be dexterity, right? We're not planning to change Zen Archery to add wisdom to damage.
Now, we should mention that is a change, though, if you happen to be a low dex build and you've been using strength for that, right? So you're going to need to maybe consider the fact that if you're currently a high strength build because you want that for whatever reason, because you're using that for your bow damage, it's your dex score that's going to... There's not an option.
No, I mean, if you have... Right? If you have the bow strength feat to get strength to damage, and your strength is higher than your dex, you'll continue using strength.
Yeah.
But if your dexterity is higher, this should just be a net increase for you. You'll start using dexterity.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, yep. All right. Yeah, I think I'm actually caught up on chat. Folks are being a little quiet. Is there something we should be... Why don't we kind of look back? What else do we have maybe in the forum post that we can continue talking about here a little bit? We talked about better scaling damage, so we kind of already covered that section. Hitting harder in heroics and epics.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about that one yet.
Yeah. So we're essentially adjusting the curve here, right?
Sure, yeah. There's two things in this section, one in heroic and one in epic. The heroic one is in the point blank shot feat, which is usually the first, at least one of the first feats a bow user generally takes, because it's a prerequisite for a whole host of other things. Now also adds when you're using a longbow or short bow, you get a +1 critical multiplier on attack rolls of a 19 to 20. So you'll be doing some extra damage on crits at pretty low levels, and then and that'll carry it all the way through up to high levels.
Yeah. Good point about that, which is that we are making some item changes. Someone in chat had asked about, updating all the named bows in light of the bow changes, but we're doing a little bit of work there to remove some of the outliers. I'm sorry. That silver longbow, man. You're killing my silver longbow. Why are you doing that after 12
we aren't,
years?
though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
so,
what's up?
There have been some bows that have been put out over the lifetime of the game that have had really, really, not just extended crit ranges, but extremely extended crit ranges. Usually to prop up bow builds because of other factors that were in bows' way, where, bows had really low damage most of the time, that they weren't using many shot, or any number of other issues, speed cap, etc. We don't need that anymore with these bow changes. Bows are going to be better on the whole, and so we are taking some of those that have very extended crit ranges and reducing their threat range by 1, so they have regularly extended crit ranges. They're still going to be the bows with the best critical profiles. They are still going to be better than almost every other bow in the game. They're just not going to be as far ahead of everything else as they were before. And this is in part so you don't feel bad if you're not using one of these 9 bows and instead want to use one of the other bows in the game. The distance between these bows and those bows is not as large.
Are we having to take a look at all of our name bows?
I mean, we did in this pass. I touched every one of them to add dexterity to damage. And took a stock of which things had particularly high critical profiles relative to everything else. Part of this pass was looking through every bow in the game and kind of analyzing its role versus every other bow in the game.
Yep. Well, and at this point then, we're just mostly looking at the itemized list of total bow changes. So that would be like faster animations, dex to damage, etc.
We pulled out a few sources of ranged attack speed, in part because these new animations are so much faster that each point of attack speed that you get from haste or ranged alacrity items, etc., is worth so much more than it was previously, that you don't need as many bonuses to attack speed to get to the kind of speeds you could reach right now on live.
Right.
So you need less investment to be as good.
Let's see. We are at about 20 minutes or so left of the show, so a good time to do some Q&A, maybe delve into a few side topics if we want to, but let's see what else people want to chat about. I actually had some people ask at the very start of the show, and I realized I never actually answered you. Yes, this is a really cool outfit. What is it? This is not a cosmetic. This is the legendary Leaf Mail. Light armor. That's from the new Feywild raid, right? I think. And then Ariana the Bolt Bow is the bow. And then the cape is the Cloak of Autumn. So kind of a set with the Cloak of Autumn and the legendary Leaf Mail there. It's looking really good though, huh? And then I've just got those the butterflies on my head because butterflies. So yeah, so I could mention that. We already mentioned that we can't really talk about the loot because neither of us specifically worked on it. For the new quests, I don't want to show too much other than maybe an intro screen to one of the quests here on the show, because I know some people tend to be a little sensitive to spoilers. And I don't know the answer to the question I saw in chat. Maybe you do, Steelstar. Do you know who the new DM is?
Oh, I don't
Do we know if it's
offhand.
like one of
Sorry.
our regulars or yeah? I
I
don't
feel like
either.
it is, but I don't remember which one.
All
I
right,
would
so
have to ask my
I'm gonna pop into an element of chaos and see if I can hear it.
I actually haven't heard the DM
I
voice for
haven't
these
either. I
dungeons
haven't
yet.
either. So I wasn't involved in any of the scheduling or recording, so I don't actually know.
Yeah, the last time I played it was before we did the voice recording, so.
Okay, so while we're... Oh, the DMV is not in the preview.
Oh, well, that would do
Well,
it.
so then I guess none of us can answer that question for you. Sorry. Alright. Oh, and I actually have the sound down. Bonus for the weekend I can look up while we're talking. So... Alright, so yes, what happens with 10,000 stars? How does that work with bows? Can you use a bow in 10,000 stars now?
You can currently, and one of the previous ways we handled that was that it and many shots shared some cooldown properties, but that's no longer a thing, which is why people are starting to notice that 10k stars on a bow user is much better maybe than it was previously. That's something we will likely address before the next preview.
Okay.
I don't have a good read on exactly how yet, though, because it's something we're working on today.
Let me throw a couple of questions at you and put you on the spot. If you can't think of an answer, hey, it's understood. These are all just kind of coming out of the blue at you. So, is it working as intended that divine healing and accelerated metabolism do not work together?
I don't
divine
remember.
Healing and accelerated metabolism not working together.
I don't remember what accelerated metabolism is.
Yeah. It's always tough, especially on the system side, to just start opening it up to general questions. But...
A frenzied berserker enhancement. Oh, right, the barbarian rage healing. I feel like it should work with. No, it's not meant to scale with. Sorry, what was the exact question again?
The exact question. I'm actually looking. Is it working as intended that divine healing and accelerated metabolism do not work together?
I don't quite get the context on that then, sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, we did our best there on that one.
Yeah.
Will we ever get a DPS test Kobold on live? That is not something that Steelstar can promise. Other than to say, I too would love to see us do that someday.
What I can say is that the existing test kobold was built by me in about 10 minutes to be a tool for internal use only, and eventually they kind of made their way to Lamannia and got popular. They are coded real badly because I threw them together in 10 minutes to test something. So if we were ever going to put them on live, we'd sort of have to invest in remaking them in a way that was more performance friendly.
Yeah, exactly right. But we should someday. We'd love to do that too, and clearly there would be some value in that. We have we do think about how you get your DPS numbers and that, and we'll probably actually have more to talk about in the future related to that.
Yeah.
Any news on Saltmarsh? Not really.
Not
really. We're full speed ahead on working on it pretty much, and other than getting 49 out the door here, right? So yeah. Fomorians still drop treasure bags in Feywild. They probably should not.
Yeah.
Oh. Is there a plan to make wisdom to damage with bows more accessible?
Not really. We it's presently accessible in primarily falconry. I think you may also be able to get it through Favored Soul, and I don't think we have any current plans to further expand that availability.
Yeah. You want trainers for that last stateroom? Huh. I wonder if we could actually do that.
We probably could.
All right. Hey, Magenta RV on YouTube asked the most important question, which is when are we getting rocket bears?
Oh my gosh. They were so close to making it into this update, but they got cut yet again. One of these times, they're going to get in.
What is the dev team idea of what is unique about the bow, i.e. two-handed fighting, strike through, single weapon fighting, attack speed, crossbows, rune arms, two weapon fighting, offhand damage? So what is unique about the bow?
Ideally, in my mind, after this pass, I feel like bows should function as kind of the heavy hitters. You're not firing as many projectiles as a repeating crossbow or a shuriken thrower, but your individual hit numbers should be fairly big.
Okay. So I'm just checking my sound settings quick. I have someone still saying that the volume's off, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's old. You sound... Someone says, you sound so human. I'm assuming they assumed you were Warforged. Yeah.
It's a very convincing voice modulator I use.
Let's see. Is Archmage on the radar? I'm not quite sure what the context of that question is either.
I got that one, which is, I've mentioned a couple of times that there are still some heroic enhancement trees that kind of need some love, and Archmage is among them. It is on our radar. I kind of doubt it's going to happen this year. I may have some time, no promises, but fingers crossed, have some time to improve a couple of those remaining trees toward the end of the year. But out of those remaining trees, Archmage is the biggest one. It's got over 200 individual enhancements. It's trying to do a lot for one enhancement tree. And I'd like to make some adjustments to it, some big adjustments even, but the size on that is larger than any other tree we could make adjustments to. So it's going to have to wait until we have a chunk of time where I can really do it justice.
Yeah. I think @J is asking on Lamannia for some kind of Reaper XP NPC. I assume that's what you're talking about.
I'd have to talk to the team about that.
Reaper XP should work, right? Doesn't that count?
Not usually, because Reaper XP grants when you're in a Reaper dungeon, and generally if you're just leveling up in the dojo, you're not in a Reaper dungeon.
Right. Yeah.
I'd have to talk to the team about that. So Lamannia, when we try to gather feedback, is this kind of weird mix where we want you to bring over your live characters, because having characters that come over from live and are real characters played by real people gives very valuable feedback. And yes, we do let you level up and make adjustments a lot easier than you could on the live servers, but we also don't want everybody to come over and immediately be a perfectly geared out, super powered, every Reaper experience point available character, because the feedback we get is a little bit less comparable to what we see on live in that case. So it's something we could talk to the team about. It's a possibility, but I wouldn't guarantee it.
Yeah. Alright. Question specifically for you. New rune arm for night revels to counter the negative effects of your coffee that shoots pumpkins this year.
Oh, my coffee's so good, though. You just gotta keep drinking it. Forever.
Never stop. Yeah. Can we get a new Lamannia client installer? The current doesn't allow you to choose a destination to install it. That surprises me that it doesn't have an express and custom thing. I have to admit that once you get Lamannia installed, you don't really need to go through the installer that much in the future. You can just kind of copy over the files to a new location and launch the launcher, and it's probably just going to work. So, I hear you, but I don't think we really have plans to update the Lamannia launcher anytime soon. It's sort of it's functional, and that's really its intention. Oh, what is the mount thing about? Yeah, we could actually talk about that real quick. I can show that off. Where's our new mount UI panel? I don't actually know where that is.
I think it's in the inventory.
Oh, actually, I know what the problem is. I never...
You don't have a mount, do you?
Yeah, I don't have a mount, so I don't have a panel
that
to
would do it.
Yeah, okay. But if I can get myself... but otherwise, we are updating the mount panel to essentially work like the creature companion stable, which should pretty much cover the basics outside of showing it off. I suppose you know the name of a Borderlands mount. Is Borderlands mount?
Um,
No.
I'm sending you one that I think
Oh, Steed of the
is
Borderlands. Yeah. There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. Great. Now that I have a mount stable, and it's the horseshoe that's underneath the creature companion stable, and then you can see there's basic spaces here for your mounts, and it gives you a description when you highlight on it, and shows the head and a little thing there. So really pretty straightforward stuff in terms of the mount stable. It is true that may mean you have less use for your mount bags, but at the same time, I think overall this is going to be a pretty significant quality of life change that is most welcome from those of us who have, what, 4 or 5 mounts at this point, in plans for many more. Many more. Yeah. I still want, well, I'm not even going to say it. Okay. Someone is asking me or you to get into customer support questions. Unfortunately, I'm not really in much of a position to talk about that. I will say that we, have had a couple of staffing sort of issues in recent weeks. We had, someone who had to take a few days off, and we had whatever, basic real life stuff. So our ticket queue is behind right now. We additionally are working on an issue where our customer service agents are having a problem with one of their main tools that they use to interface. And so we've had some technical issues that have slowed things down in the past couple of weeks as well. That work is one of the highest priorities of our technical operations team. Our intention is to get that work corrected as close to immediately as we can. So once that happens, our customer service team is really going to be in a position to pick up the pace significantly on our ticketing queue. And we understand that things are a little slow right now. So I do, apologize for the issue that has you headed to our Twitch chat to ask about the length of time it's taken for your customer service issue. And that is something we're both aware of, and we are actively working to resolve here as soon as we can. I don't know if I'm okay showing off any of the hardcore stuff or not. Can I show off the reward? Is anyone going to stop me, I guess, is the main question.
I don't know if it's 100% in this Lamannia build.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Okay.
I think we were still waiting on some art, if I recall correctly.
Okay. So the answer is I best not show off the new hardcore rewards on Lamannia here. Are we hiring more customer service? You would want to look at daybreakgames.com/careers. We utilize their HR, and so they have our job postings. We either recently did... Yeah, we recently did. We had 2 positions for customer service that had been posted, about a month or so ago. And those are being filled as we speak. I believe actually one of them maybe is starting like today, tomorrow?
I think tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So the answer to that is yes, we are doing some active hiring, among other things, that we're working on to improve your customer service experience. But I bring that up because we actually have a job posting right now. As of yesterday, we opened up a position for a 12-month temporary QA position for both Dungeons & Dragons Online and the Lord of the Rings Online. It's one position for both games. 12-month temporary QA. And it is my understanding, I can't speak for HR, my knowledge of it is generally about as much as is listed on the job description. My understanding is this is basically a remote job. There are certain restrictions we have that we have to abide by in terms of where you're geolocated, things like that. But this is a remote position, 12-month temp QA thing for DDO, and Lotro. So I suspect there may be some people here who have that kind of experience and or interest who might want to know that we posted that job yesterday. So take a look over on the Daybreak Games careers page if you want to learn more about that. We have about 5 minutes here. Players Council invites, Kokomo Jobo says, should be out by the end of the week. That sounds good. I know that he's been working pretty hard on that. We're refreshing the entire Players Council roster and giving the whole thing an update because we hadn't done it really since about 2017 or so. It was
it's been a while.
long past due. So we're doing a top-down refresh, and you've been hearing about that on the forums. But if you're one of those who applied and want to know if you're getting in, that's going to be really within the next couple of days that we're getting that. So. In terms of the external, or Exola rather, not working for some countries and having to use the external DDO market as a result, that is typically not something we have the ability to make too many adjustments on. There are a very few, but there are some places. I know specifically I hear from players in Ukraine and some other countries that we're limited due to, about where we can accept payments from. And Exola has kind of its standard slate of things that it operates for both our store and the other stores that they manage across various industries. So our ability to just sort of suddenly open up payments that are restricted due to things like Department of Commerce mandate or things like that, there's only so much we can do about that. We're always working to try to resolve those issues when we can. But the one you're specifically thinking of, I think, is maybe due to you being in Ukraine, and there's not much that we have the ability to do. As to why you can do it in one store and not the other, it has to do with where the articles of incorporation are for that place. For example, if you are a US-based business, you have to abide by US-based consumer laws. And if you're located in a different country, then you would have to abide by those laws. And that up to and includes various restrictions on geolocation payments. So that's why maybe you can do one but not the other. There may be little we can do there. No mention about how much the adventure pack will be in DDO points, but I could say it's going to be in the standard range for a quest pack. Any plans about doing something to use the LFM panel to advertise their Twitch channel? So, I've seen some complaints here, and I've seen some complaints in the forums about that. So let me just kind of address that. There's a general etiquette in streaming culture to say that you're streaming when you're streaming. There's also a lot of people out there who want to promote their channel through various online game LFMs. Where that line crosses between I want you to know that you're joining something that's live on the air when you hit up the LFM, and hey, I'm really just, promoting my Twitch channel by having an LFM up 24 hours a day, is really often something that needs to be handled through customer service at, when they're dealing with it. You cannot, it is not allowed to just put up an LFM to promote your Twitch channel. That is not allowed. You must be actually actively seeking members to join your group to run content in order to post up on the LFM. If you're not doing that, then you're doing it wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and you should not be promoting your Twitch channel in the LFM. And that can be reported, and customer service can respond. Where if someone just... We also have people who are pretty sensitive to not even want to see a Twitch URL or something in the LFM, and that's where it gets a little bit more blurry, because there's also a general understanding that if you're joining an LFM and that LFM is being broadcast to Twitch, that you have the right to know that. And so typically people will put their Twitch URL to let you know where you can check out yourself when you join the LFM. And you get into rules lawyery stuff and all the other kind of thing. But as a general rule, you must be using the LFM to look for a group. And if you're not doing that, then it is against the code of conduct.
Streaming itself is such an interesting thing, that wasn't even a concept when DVO started up.
I know. I was actually thinking
so
about that the other day because of our 15th anniversary. And the podcast and that I was doing, and YouTube started in, 2007?
Yeah.
So there wasn't even a YouTube when DDO first came out. It happened pretty darn quick, but...
I started on DDO in 2010, and it still wasn't a thing then either, Yeah. I mean, YouTube was, but streaming itself was still, just...
Yeah. So it's certainly... I understand the pain and frustration that people hate to see abuse of the LFM. I know customer service often has to deal with those gray areas and personality conflicts and people who are just sick of seeing that one streamer's URL on the LFM or whatever. And it is tends to be a fairly complex issue, but the core is fairly simple. When customer service is responding to a complaint, is that LFM actively seeking players? Can people join? And if they join, are they actually running content? That's really where the line is drawn. All right, I think, we're at 1 o'clock here, so I think we're going to wrap things up unless someone has something specifically. I do not have a Feywild store date to announce today. I also do not have a bonus for you today, because I need to get together with a couple of people and lock that down this afternoon. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for joining me, Steelstar. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you, everybody, for joining us on the live stream. Quick reminder, we do have a dev event tonight on Lamannia, so it's a great opportunity to see this in person and chat with the developers who are doing the work on it. I believe is that 7 to 10, 8 to 10?
8 to 10, I believe.
Yeah.
And I should be there. Looking forward to talking to people.
Sounds good. All right, thank you very much for watching, everyone. And I will see you next week. We're going to be on Hardcore, most likely, because Hardcore is going to be live as of just shortly before noon next week, I'm going to guess. And I will see you all then. Have fun, everyone.